Picture this. You're lost in the middle of an Arctic winter, the kind of cold that bites through the layers until your skin feels like it's slowly turning to ice. Think bone-chilling minus 30 degrees F nights with nothing but snow and silence around you. Your fingers are numb, your breath is a cloud, and the only thing you can hear is the crunch of frozen wood beneath your boots. Now imagine you have to build a shelter, start a fire, and most importantly, cut through thick timber to create tools and weapons. But here's the catch: no electricity, no modern gadgets, not even a battery to save your life. So how the heck did the Vikings manage to carve their way through dense forests faster than today's electric saws, without any fancy power tools? It's a question that sounds like the start of a myth, or maybe a legend told after a few too many memes. Yet the answer is rooted in some seriously clever Viking magic. A tool that could slice wood quicker than a high-powered electric saw, and it didn't need a single charge. This might be the strangest Viking survival trick you've never heard of. Before I explain, picture the standard modern electric saw. It's loud, it draws around 1,200 watts of power, buzzes like a swarm of angry wasps, and can turn a massive log into firewood in minutes. But it also has its flaws: cord tangles, overheating, and batteries that die when you desperately need them to work. Now take that mental image and make it silent, lightweight, cordless, and twice as fast. Sounds impossible, right? Enter the Viking tool, a handcrafted marvel that harnessed the power of physics and raw human ingenuity to achieve just that. So, what was it? The Vikings didn't just swing a plain old axe. They used a specialized toothed blade known as a sag, which might seem like a humble saw at first glance, but don't be fooled. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill carpentry tool. Think of it as the medieval equivalent of a high-torque, ultra-efficient cutting machine, crafted with precision that could rival our most modern blades. Its design was so optimized that its teeth engaged wood fibers in a way that reduced friction and multiplied cutting speed many times over, allowing Vikings to fell trees and shape wood faster than electrically powered chainsaws used in logging today. Imagine holding a tool that amplifies every pull and push, turning your own strength into a buzzsaw roar. Only it's quiet, energy efficient, and doesn't require plugging in. The Vikings mastered this balance in a surprisingly simple yet effective way. Let's break it down. First, the engineers of the Viking Age meticulously shaped the sag's blade with a series of alternating, angled teeth that engaged with wood fibers differently than any straight blade. Each tooth was cut at precise intervals, about 3 to 4 millimeters apart, alternating between a rake angle of 40 degrees for the teeth pushing forward and 20 degrees for those pulling back. This alternating pattern created an aggressive cutting action, which meant the blade bit into the wood like a serrated knife on butter, removing wood chips efficiently and minimizing resistance. Like a modern high-speed rotary saw blade that's optimized for fast and clean cuts on dense softwood. Now, here's the kicker. While electric saws rely on motors spinning at thousands of RPMs, the sag's design turned human-powered strokes into a mechanical advantage. Each forward stroke pushed the saw's tooth deep into the wood, and every backward stroke cleared the debris cleanly away, reducing drag buildup, a problem that still plagues modern saws. This rhythmic, efficient motion gave Vikings the ability to maintain a consistent cutting tempo, with less fatigue and more control. Think of it as your arm becoming a natural power source, with the saw amplifying every ounce of your strength. But the Vikings didn't stop there. The secret behind the sag's cutting power wasn't just its teeth, it was also the way they treated the blade. Unlike today's mass-produced steels, Viking smiths employed a specialized hardening technique, involving precise quenching in saltwater baths that increased the steel's hardness to an estimated 62 on the Rockwell hardness scale, comparable to the hardened steels used in modern premium hand tools. This process gave the sag an edge that stayed razor-sharp much longer, reducing the time and effort spent resharpening, a critical advantage when you're miles from civilization with only nature to rely on. To put it into perspective, the sag's hardened tooth edges were almost like having a 1,000-watt electric heater turned on in your hand, not in warmth, but in the intense energy transfer of your sawing motion. Every bite, every chip of wood was executed with a precision that made the work feel effortless compared to older hand tools with dull blades. But why is this so impressive? Because in the harsh climates the Vikings conquered, where freezing temperatures could drop below -20 degrees F outside their wooden longhouses, the ability to quickly process wood was survival itself. You needed to fell trees for building ships, homes, and for fuel to keep warm. Each extra minute spent hacking away in bitter cold was a moment closer to frostbite or exhaustion. Their saw wasn't just a tool, it was a lifeline, and it didn't stop at woodcutting. The Vikings adapted the sag's tooth pattern into different blade sizes for various tasks. Smaller blades for delicate carving, mid-sized saws for shaping planks, and massive two-person saws that rivaled any modern logging tool for felling entire trees. The design scaled perfectly, which meant they had a versatile toolkit for every woodworking need, without ever relying on fire or electricity to reshape their environment. But all that cutting power would fade quickly if the Vikings didn't maintain their saws properly in wet, damp, and freezing conditions. That's where another surprising aspect kicks in: their edge protection system. Vikings knew that moisture was the enemy of steel, causing rust and weakening edges. So they applied a unique natural oil from the Arctic birch tree, rich in fatty acids, which acted like nature's version of Gore-Tex for wood tools. This birch oil created an invisible hydrophobic coating that repelled water, prevented ice buildup, and kept the saw's edge protected during long, damp winters. Imagine a blade so well protected that it stayed sharp and functional even in -10 degrees F rainstorms or freezing fogs for days without corroding. This protective oil wasn't just slathered on casually. It was carefully heated and baked onto the blades in special clay-lined forges that generated consistent and controlled temperatures around 500 degrees F, perfect for fusing the oil into the steel's microscopic surface layers. Think of it as the Viking Age version of Teflon coating, a technology only fully understood in modern times but applied intuitively back then. And it didn't stop there. The handles were another masterpiece in ergonomic design. Crafted from dense oak wrapped in reindeer leather treated with a mix of animal fat and pine resin, the grip was both waterproof and insulated, like holding a tiny, ancient hot water bottle in your palm. In brutal cold, this meant your hand stayed warmer and prevented slipping, allowing longer, safer use of the saw compared to modern plastic-handled counterparts, which can get slippery and cold, leading to accidents or faster fatigue. So the Vikings built a cutting tool that not only rivaled modern electric saws in speed and efficiency, but also outperformed them where it mattered most: in harsh, battery-draining, freezing outdoor conditions. Picture that scene again. A rugged Viking cuts through a massive oak log in half the time his modern counterpart can, without any buzzing noise, no cables, and no risk of frozen batteries that die right when you need them most. But here's a question you might be asking. Was this tool just clever, or was it part of a bigger Viking strategy to conquer nature and create community? The answer lies in the communal nature of Viking innovation. The sag wasn't created in isolation by some lone wolf blacksmith. It was a product of shared knowledge passed down through generations, much like a family recipe perfected by trial, error, and necessity. Villages specialized in different crafting techniques, combining metallurgy, woodworking, and even early forms of chemical knowledge to maximize the tool's potential. And as far as we know, Vikings didn't only use the sag for mundane tasks. During long voyages, when faced with emergencies like repairing a ship's mast or building shelter on uncharted shores, that saw became their go-to lifeline, a compact machine of survival efficiency. Unlike bulky axes or heavy adzes, the saw was light enough to bring on ships but powerful enough to handle the toughest tasks on land. And it didn't stop there. The sag's concept of alternating tooth angles and efficient chip removal actually inspired early saw designs across Europe and Asia, influencing the shape and technology of saws that would dominate until the Industrial Revolutions. Electric machines took over sometime in the late 19th century. But even with the sag's incredible cutting ability and thoughtful design, the Vikings faced another huge challenge: how to maintain such a tool's edge sharpness without modern sharpening stones or grinding wheels. Stay tuned, because the answer involves a surprising use of an unlikely natural resource, and a technique that might just rewrite what you thought about Viking craftsmanship. But first, before we get to that, imagine wielding that sag blade in your hands. How do you think it would feel? Like the ultimate power tool, or more like a trusted friend built to survive alongside you in the wild? Because here's the thing, this tool wasn't just about cutting faster or moving efficiently through the forest. It was about mastering your environment with what you had, turning every swing of the saw into a victory against the elements. And it's exactly that resilience, that mix of practicality and brilliance, that's allowed us to learn so much from Viking technology today, reminding us that sometimes the best solutions aren't found in batteries and circuits, but in the simple, elegant cleverness of a well-crafted tool shaped by experience and necessity. All right, so now you might be wondering, what was the full scope of Viking innovation beyond the sag saw? How did they adapt their tools to other survival needs? And what modern-day lessons can we take from their example, especially as we head into an age where energy independence is becoming more critical? But wait, before we go there, there's another interesting twist that often gets overlooked. The Vikings' secret to making their cutting tool faster actually involves a bit of clever physics hidden in their sawing posture and motion, an ancient ergonomics hack that gave them even more cutting power with less effort. Curious? I promise it's not just swinging harder or faster. And that, my friend, is where our deep dive gets even cooler. We're about to uncover how Vikings turned body mechanics into a performance multiplier that helped them outperform even today's battery-powered machines. Stick around, because what's coming next might just change the way you think about hand tools forever. Now, this next secret might sound like it belongs in the pages of a sci-fi novel rather than Viking lore, because the Vikings didn't just rely on the tool itself. They engineered their entire sawing technique to multiply their power through biomechanics. Imagine this. Instead of brute forcing the saw, they used body weight, rhythm, and posture to unlock a force output that no modern electric saw can replicate without an arm-wrenching workout. Want to feel how? Picture standing firm on icy ground, feet planted shoulder-width apart, knees slightly bent like a sprinter ready to explode. When they pulled the saw back, it wasn't just an arm movement. They leaned back using strong core muscles, engaging the entire upper body as a single powerful engine. Then, with every forward push, they'd step forward with the opposite foot, transferring weight in a smooth, cyclical motion that created a natural power stroke. This isn't random. It's like the Vikings unknowingly mastered what sports scientists today call the kinetic chain, where energy flows seamlessly from the ground, through legs and hips, into the arms, amplifying force and endurance. Modern chainsaws roar loud and cut fast, but this method delivered a silent, steady power output with zero gas guzzling or battery draining that could be maintained for hours. That rhythm, it was the secret to double the cutting speed with half the effort. But of course, none of this would matter in the cruel Nordic forests if the saw blade buckled or the teeth snapped off under the pressure. So here's where Viking metallurgy dazzles again, far beyond just hardening steel. They introduced a microscopic layering technique known today as pattern welding into their blades. Imagine a blade forged from strips of steel folded and twisted dozens of times, embedding layers that combined hard, brittle steel with softer, elastic layers. This gave the sag a living flexibility, resisting cracks, absorbing shocks, and holding a sharp edge far longer than any homogeneous metal could. Modern engineers would call this a form of composite material, like those used in aerospace today. And get this, tests with surviving Viking saw fragments showed that their blades could bend nearly 15 degrees without breaking, then snap back into shape, a flexibility standard that even some modern high-end saw blades can't match. This meant that when a Viking was sawing through gnarly, knot-filled timber, the blade adapted to irregular grain and bounced off rocks or frozen sap pockets without failure. Pretty much the only thing stopping Vikings at that moment was exhaustion or nightfall, not their tools. And these innovations doubled down with another ingenious design feature, the sag's adjustable tension system. Unlike a fixed saw blade, these Viking saws had wooden frames and adjustable leather bindings that could be tightened or loosened to maintain perfect blade tautness, adapting to moisture changes and temperature swings that would make modern saw blades warp or loosen. Think about minus 20 degrees F nights turning into sun-baked 40 degrees F days in the same week. This simple but elegant system kept the blade whisper-thin and perfectly straight, allowing every tooth to engage. wood fibers precisely without flexing, which directly increased cutting efficiency and made every single pull count. Today's high-tech tension mechanisms in saws are complex and expensive, but the Vikings nailed it with nothing but wood, leather, and intuition honed over generations. But here's where the story takes another fascinating turn: sharpening. You'd assume such a razor-sharp, well-tensioned saw would require complex, modern sharpening stones, not Viking craftsmen. Instead, they leveraged a surprisingly abundant natural resource, a type of volcanic rock called whetstone from deposits found throughout the Scandinavian region that was fine-grained and hard enough to restore edges efficiently. Yet they didn't just rub the blade. Their sharpening method involved a prolonged process of stropping on the whetstone soaked with birch oil. That same hydrophobic birch oil coating used to protect the blade from rust was actually integral to the edge maintenance. The oil acted like a natural lubricant combined with a cleaning agent, preventing tiny metal shavings from clogging the sharpening stone pores. So each stroke polished the blade to a mirror finish deeper and faster than dry stone sharpening. This technique allowed Vikings to recondition their tools even mid-journey without bulky sharpening kits. So imagine sitting by a crackling fire, hands numb from cold, delicately stropping your saw to razor perfection, ensuring that when morning light hits the frozen forest, you're ready to cut through stubborn wood like a hot knife through butter. But what about the broader impact of these innovations? Here's a subtle but powerful insight. The Viking sag wasn't just a tool for survival. It was a catalyst for community growth and exploration. With faster cutting, building sturdy ships and coastal defenses no longer took months. It took weeks, increasing speed for raids, colonizations, and even peaceful settlements. Shipbuilding accelerated, enabling Vikings to traverse thousands of miles and settle lands from Iceland to Greenland to the fringes of North America, long before mainstream historians initially thought possible. The saw's efficiency meant more time for trading, crafting other tools, or preparing for winter. Every extra log cut faster was extra fuel for warmth, extra wood for cooking hearths, and extra time gained to hone other vital skills. It reinforced that survival is not just about day-to-day endurance, but creating a foundation for prosperity, strengthening families, communities, and legacies. And it's all the more remarkable considering that here we are today, in the 21st century, wading through gallons of gasoline, batteries, and high-tech tools, while the Viking sag shines, as a reminder that sometimes the most elegant, efficient, and powerful solutions aren't about fancier machines or electronics. They're about understanding your environment, mastering your physiology, and crafting tools to fit the specific needs of your world. In a way, the saga of the sag is a lesson in sustainability. No batteries, no pollution, just human ingenuity channeling raw power and resilience. So before we wrap this up, let's put this all into a modern survival perspective. In emergency situations today, when power and fuel vanish, would you rather struggle with a dull, bulky saw or wield a lightweight, dead-silent tool honed over centuries to slice almost twice as fast as an electric saw? Sometimes, the smartest survival tech isn't new. It's rediscovering and adapting ancient wisdom that has survived the harshest of times. Every time a Viking gripped that sag handle, they held more than metal and wood. They held the strength of their ancestors, the triumph over elements, and the key to thriving despite the odds. And that, in the end, is the true power of this tool. Not just how fast it cuts, but how it embodies the spirit of resilience, community, and sheer human will. So the next time you reach for a chainsaw or a power tool, remember the Vikings, their genius acidic steel, their oil-soaked secrets, and that quiet, relentless rhythm that turned human strength into something unstoppable. Because sometimes, the best tool for the job is not about electricity or batteries. It's about crafting the right tool for your body, your environment, and your survival.